Hi everyone, we're going to begin a second episode on God as Creator, the Indisputable Proofs. Now this is going to be an interesting one. You ever think about the solar system and what keeps it going and why we don't fly out into space? Well, you have reason to worry, uh, but not worry at the same time, if there's a creator. And we'll see what I mean by that. So all computerized recreations of our solar system show that the interplay of planets' gravitational pulls require that all planets should have long ago flown off wildly into space. We'll review the proofs. And by the way, this is a special area of science. People who put all the planets' gravitational mass, their trajectory, speeds, all the variables that are involved, and so they're solar system mechanic experts. Okay. And Ivars Peterson is one of the tops, and he wrote this book. I actually read all this book because to me, I've always been obsessed by our own little solar system planets. I loved studying them as a kid, and I used to track sunspots on the sun for my science class and stuff like that. So we live in a very interesting place. His book is called Chaos in the Solar System, 1993, and these are several references he makes to the same thing, and I'll the parenthetical notes at the end there are important to this whole thing. So here's what he says. Several strikingly different methods of computing and tracking the evolution of planetary orbits all generate results confirming that chaos lurks in the planetary framework. And by the way, what they mean by chaos is they don't really mean chaos. They mean it's the opposite of chaos, meaning we can't find the factor of what is explaining why these planets are not all, by every force of gravity that we know of and measured with such precision would require all these planets to fly off at any second. We're literally sitting not on a time bomb, a bomb that should have gone off, billions of years ago. Okay, so you'll see the range of time that it should have happened is very relatively short. You can see ahead 3 to 30 million years is all it needs in time to actually fly off into space, and it's well past that time. So the chaos lurks in the planetary clockwork. Sussman and Wisdom have remarked, quote, the fact that almost all long-term integrations of the solar system give exponential divergence of trajectories, i.e. that means the planets fly off erratically, with the time scale in the range of 3 to 30 million years in physically quite different models. So they've used all kinds of models from different angles, different hypotheses of what could be going on. So every model they try, it always comes out between 3 and 30 million years. The planet should have, gone off flying in their own directions. So he says physically quite different models is very striking and unsettling. For scientists, you're going, there has to be an explanation of why we're not flying off into the Netherlands, into the nether space. This is compounded by the fact that, despite the efforts of Lasker and others, in no case have we unambiguously identified the mechanism responsible for the chaotic behavior. Again, this behavior that corrects for the fact that why are we not flying off into space instead of flying into space? So I put in parenthetical notes here. So I said contrast page 261, 263. Stability. So there is one level of stability where it works. So that means they're on the right formula. Stability can be found with 3 planets, but not 9 bodies orbiting the star. Okay. Then at page 256, chaos becomes possible with 4 planets. So what they mean is the determination of staying stable in a planetary system is okay with 3, but the minute where they go from 3 to 4, it eventually becomes chaotic and out of control. And they can't, and so they call the factor that's keeping it together as chaos. So it's kind of like, it's almost like if you ever watch Get Smart, there's chaos. Chaos is your enemy, but actually control the spy organization would have nothing to do if chaos didn't exist. So chaos is keeping control in business if they actually ever thought about it. It's exactly, I kind of laugh when I thought about that. So this is a miracle. This is a darn gosh darn legitimate miracle that we're not flying off into space every second. So let's go to the next slide. We'll see there's more in this. Okay, so this is my explanation. What Peterson is explaining is that the solar system is stable in computerized models based on Newtonian laws of gravity with only 3 planets. However, as soon as you add a fourth planet, the trajectories of all planets become unstable, and in that time range of 3 to 30 million years when they play it out. And the planets should veer out of orbit, and as you add more planets to a total of 9, the loss of trajectories is more certain. Thus, the mathematical models based on Newtonian laws of gravity appear valid to a point, but after that point, something else or someone else is intervening to hold together the planets. And it is obvious it is something powerful and able to counter very precisely the forces of gravity itself. So whatever is the countermeasure is precisely suited to only enough force to counter that chaos force that would want to fly it off into space. So it's almost like a loving hand is just giving just enough force to keep us all together so we don't fly off into space. And don't you think if we're created, and I think you can see the proofs we provided previously, we're created, that creator knows how to make it so that you, when you finally figure this out, you know you're dependent upon the creator's will at every second, for your fate it completely exists in that creator's hands. And when he wants to make a new heavens and an earth, all he has to do is remove that, what they call the chaos factor. And now control will be out of a job. The planet and the earth will be gone, and God can create. Look at the power he has. He can do anything he wants. So if he says he's going to make a new heavens and new earth, you can believe him because he's done a really good job with the old ones and just creating it and setting it up in a way to reveal his role in all of this. So let me make sure I finish this. So it is obvious it is something powerful and able to counter very precisely the forces of gravity itself. Thus, it is true to say the Earth is held in orbit by gravity. So if you were asked a math question or a science question, say what holds the Earth in its orbit, you'd have to say gravity. So from the perspective of just one planet, gravity does explain why we're spinning around the sun. Or if you ask why is Jupiter spinning around the sun from perspective of just one planet, it's because it's going around the sun, and it's the forces of gravity between the Earth, sun and Jupiter, right? But when you add all the other planets, they interact. They have their own weight and mass, and they're attracting and creating destabilizations in the orbit. So it doesn't work when you've put in all the planets. So let me see what else I had here. Thus, it is true to say the Earth is held in orbit by gravity, but something else is holding the Earth in orbit despite the gravitational pull of the other planets that should hurl Earth at any moment into darkest space and should have done so many, many billions of years ago. Okay, so it's fun, but scary at the same time to learn these things, okay? Scary at the same time to learn these things, okay? Okay, now for those atheists who are watching this, you could have expected maybe I would have a Bible verse, but actually this is a scientific Bible verse. In other words, this is science built into a verse. Now I just want to tell you a little bit about Job, okay? Job is prior. Okay, there was a book written by Moses called Job, and the way the Jewish people understand it is this book of Job was rewritten by Moses based on inspiration. You may or may not believe that at the moment. That's a different question. And this is 500 years before Moses and the people of Israel are trying to escape from Egypt. So this is a story that was handed down, apparently in writing, that Moses rewrites in 1250 BC. Of a man who lived 300, or scholars say about 500 years before Moses. So an amount of astronomical information in the next quotes is pretty phenomenal if you just pay a little attention in a fair way. Job in 26 verse 7 says, God, quote, hangs the earth on nothing. There is no religion on earth that believed that. They thought the earth was like, terra firma, like it's flat, or even if it was round, I don't know that they knew that it was sitting in space or why it would be sitting in space. It might have a curvature, but they didn't really put it all together. The Greeks may have, but the Greeks, if I'm not incorrect, the Greeks figured that out around 350 BC. So this is somebody who doesn't have Pythagorean theorems and observation methods of the stars and all that. It's just somebody who's basically dealing with God one-on-one. Like there's not many people yet, and Job is one of the first humans on earth. Anyway, let's continue and you'll see more. In Job 38, verses 4 to 7, God sarcastically asks Job and his know-it-all friend, he's got several people that have an answer for everything, and then God has been silent through most of the story. He's listening to these people bickering about why is Job suffering, and God just actually allowed him to suffer with the every intention to prove to Satan, the adversary, that Job is actually a righteous man and he won't curse me, even despite all the bad things that are going to happen. And then God reversed everything when it was all over and Job had a better life. But that's the premise of Job. Is suffering can sometimes just be God trusts you to not curse him while you're under extreme physical pain or mental anguish. So hang in there. It can be, God has rewards for you if you're going through a tough time. Anyway, Job 38:7. So God is sarcastically saying these following questions to these guys who think they know what's going. They think they know what's on God's mind. Job never does that, but the other guys with him do. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determines its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? Okay, so now let's reflect on what this is saying. Note that this says the earth hangs on nothing, this passage. The earth is hanging on nothing. And rhetorically, God is saying its foundations were not fastened to anything. There's no physical connection to anything. It's just floating there in space, which is pretty amazing if you really down deep think about it. And the science I showed you, the chaos science, makes it really more obvious that there's something beyond science. Well, actually, scientifically, we've eliminated all explanations other than God for why it's rotating and not flying away. So the only thing left is God. We've eliminated everything else scientifically. We've accounted for all the laws, all the dynamics, the weight, the mass, the speeds, everything. We've not missed anything, and it works at 3 planets. So we're not missing anything except that what is the factor when it goes over 3? What are we missing? Calling it chaos is just a label for, we don't know. Well, is this the God of the gaps, or is this God? Well, right now we only have one person to account that could be doing this and saving our souls every day, a week, every hour, every minute we're breathing, and that would be God. That makes, to me, that's the most probable answer here. Okay, so probability is sometimes what you got to go by. Anyway, so now in the midst of this statement by Job, it says a line was stretched upon or to the earth. It actually means both. An invisible cord or the line is how God describes his laying the control of the earth that hangs on nothing and sits on nothing. So there is some way that God is making sure, what he calls the cord, that this is not going to fly off in space. But we have a little more on that, I think in the next slide. Yes, indeed, we have a little more. So let's rephrase Job 38:4-7. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the cord to it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? Now, Evar's Peterson summarizes that a mysterious element is guiding and controlling the planets, all of them, that exceeds the laws of gravity. In other words, gravity can only explain up to 3 planets, but once it hits 4, it starts becoming too variable and it will not hang together and will fly off into space over a period of $3 to $30 million years in their computer recreations. And his conclusion is that dynamics of the solar system contain an element that simply can't be captured by calculation. What he really means is there's a human mind, not a human mind, there is a mind that is controlling this. And the way God explained it through Job is a cord. A cord is reaching out and holding on to that, us, and that's why it's staying in its place. But that's a divine cord, and that science can't quantify or see, right? And that's what's holding the planet in place. So as far as all the evidence proves is Job, although it's 1500 BC, it not only understood this was not a planet flat on the ground or even curved on the ground. This was a planet and actually calls in another passage the circle of the earth. which in Hebrew they explain actually a circle can be a sphere if it was a sphere. So you can call a sphere a circle with the same word. Okay. Anyway, so there you go. That's very interesting. I think I have one more slide. Let's see. Okay, yes, I do on this particular topic. So let's study the word translated sometimes as line. So I know maybe you're not a religious person, whoever your friend told you to watch here, and you're going to learn a little bit about this. I'm just trying to understand what the text means, so just bear with me. Job 38, 4 to 7, or who stretched the cord or line to it? To what were its foundations fastened, or who laid its cornerstone? So my view, God describes what is holding the earth by the Hebrew word kav, meaning cord, as connecting. It can also mean rule or rim or a musical string. Here, science helps us understand the proper translation is cord. So God stretched a cord or line to earth as a means of holding it upon nothing. This is obviously symbolic of the means he used to control the earth's path. It is not free floating. I'm just going to throw out something is a cord or line could be, you ever notice how you have the north and south poles? So maybe there's some way these poles that kind of operate like a single line from north to south, that somehow the way it sets or sometimes flips or whatever, that's the cord that God uses between planet to planet to planet to planet, that he can set that up like on his computers. So let's say he had a computer of all this. And so if you imagine that, he can input how these planets correlate and correct on a moment by moment basis so they don't go flying off by very small interstitial changes where he can have them pulled or pushed in that necessary direction so they don't fly off, because he doesn't want his baby here. This is our little solar system he cares about. He's created us. He's visited us. He's dwelled with us in temples. He's given words of wisdom and inspiration to millions and billions of people. They don't always follow it, and we're imperfect beings, but he's trying to get through to us. And so we are blessed to have the creator of this universe trying to communicate with us. So anyway, that's what I think is going on here. That's what explains this. You could call it the God of the gaps, and I'm sure you will. But if you really think and reflect on it, this isn't one where you don't really know. You know you've eliminated everything else, and that's where you can lead to the next inference. And the next inference is what I said. They say the next inference is chaos. Some sort of chaos factor or factor that we just don't understand explains it, and we haven't found it yet. So that's the typical answer. But I think they have found the answer. And frankly, if you did find the answer of how God is doing things, it's going to look just like this. You've eliminated every other possibility that you know by science, and there's no other explanation left but the hand of God. Okay, and sometimes it's useful to actually read some of the original writings of I wouldn't call Cicero a philosopher, but he was a politician who philosophized, or philosophers from the past, because these are people contemplating the nature of the world. And actually, Cicero put this so perfectly in this work, De Natura Deorum, section 46. So just listen to it. It just strikes a good chord with me. Can any sane person believe that all this array of stars and the vast celestial adornment could have been created out of atoms rushing to and fro fortuitously and at random? Could any other being devoid of intelligence and reason have created them? Not merely did their creation postulate intelligence, but it is impossible to understand their nature without intelligence of a high order. If any man is not impressed by this coordination of things and this harmonious combination of nature to secure the preservation of the world, I know for certain that he has never given any consideration to these matters. And I think something that he intuited, meaning he knew it by intuition, is something that is now proven by science. This is exactly the conclusion you would, by obvious means of inference from by eliminating all other reasonable possibilities, you end up with the only explanation is there's a chaos factor, meaning there's something holding it together, and it's balancing off all the trajectories and all the weights and all the gravitational pull is being fought against by some other hidden unseen hand, if you will. So let's go to the next slide, and then it'll be the end, I think. Okay. And this is a psalm. Again, you may have no religious faith, but I hope I'm creating some that you've going, hey, this could be, if you're an atheist, this could be correct. So Psalm 19, 1-4. The heavens declare the glory of God. And I want you to notice, even as, from whatever perspective you are, this is saying that what the universe has is speech. Look at what I've highlighted in red. Declares, shows, utters speech, their voice is not heard in words. So I'm going to start over again. But this is saying that we have a communication. It's like the book of nature that speaks to us, words that we can hear because we are beings that can actually receive it. So God, in my view, created us so that we are the one species that can actually put this all together and interpret it and conclude that God not only exists, but he cares and has a loving hand. This is the example of the hidden hand to protect and guide and take care of man. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth. I'm just going to stop there. Remember, Job mentioned a cord, this line, connection that is maintaining our orbit in the sense that we don't fly off, even though that dynamically speaking, we should, due to the mechanics of Mars next to us, due to Venus not too far away the other way, and Saturn and Jupiter. I mean, all of these interplay should pull us out of our orbit at any second. It could happen. It could happen today. God willing, no, because God has been regular and dependable. And I believe he's given us scripture that there's a terrible day coming where this world will be brought to an end, but it's not yet. So that we can trust that, right? You're going to go to work today. You're going to have a life and build your life, and yet at any second it could go flying off in space. It's because you trust that there is a hand guiding and holding it all together. Anyway, so their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. It says it well. And by the way, just the way this book called the Bible has things like this, like from the Psalm of David, that's what can prove to you that God exists, because this is these people's perception. Cicero had an amazing perception, but also the psalmist is talking as if he knows the mind of God, as if God is speaking through him and telling us what's going on. This is communication to you through the facts of nature. All right, so just one more slide, and it's a slide to just ask you to refer other people to watch this, even if you're an atheist. If this has been created some curiosity in you that maybe you're going to see more stuff. I've got 150 slides to go. I created this slideshow some time back, and I always meant to put it into a single slideshow, but I just these are 8 slides, and it's over 20 minutes. Okay. Anyway, God bless. I'm going to go to the next slide and just ask you to refer people to watch this stuff because it's fun. Okay, so thank you for watching this episode of our series. Please share this video with a friend or family member or someone who wants to post challenges on our comment page. Most people are curious whether there could be a God who cares for them in their difficulty. This video is the start of showing them such care and love is self-evident. And this is all the theme of this series is the eternal gospel is to fear God and worship him as creator. Revelation chapter 14 verse 6. So this is the gospel in the stars that God wants to reveal to all mankind, and he's calling us to worship him. And but there's more to it than that. He sent a son to teach us a way of living in life and how to have eternal life. And so that's what he did to more even caringly love us. Okay. So anyway, God bless. Hope this helped everybody. Ciao. Bye.